Hey, good morning, everybody. It is day 135 of spiritual health care. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope you guys had a really good week. We didn't do spiritual health care last week because the inauguration was on Wednesday, and I know so many people wanted to watch that. It was such a huge day for America in so many ways, whether you're very excited about the inauguration or just really down about it. It was a big day. So we left it last week and we're back this week today. I say day 135 of spiritual healthcare, and it's really good to see everybody again this morning. I think so much has gone on in the last week, and so much has been transpiring, and so there's lots to talk about. That's a really great question, two really great questions today. That I think will be really good for everybody to hear and engage with and whatever. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Day 135. I hope you guys had a really great week. It was a good week here. It's been cold as hell. It is like cold as balls here. I don't know about you guys. Good morning, Sally and Dan and Laura. Hey. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Marge. It is good to see you guys. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really cold here. It's been like minus 26 ish. It's Celsius. It's really cold. So I've been in the last few days working on a new editing project, and whatever for Snake and Pyre. So that's been really fun. Got a new fire video in the works. I hope you guys got the chance to see the last little fire video that I did in regards to our manifestations, our creation, and the sort of that emotional strain that we end up controlling, that we really don't realize that is making our creations a little wonky. So it's up on the YouTube channel and on EntitySeeker.ca as well if you guys missed it. But it was really cool. So one of the things that I actually wanted to talk about over like today and is a couple of things. I got a really great question about grief and what to do when you know that somebody is passing away or coming to the end of their life, as well as why some people have experiences and paranormal experiences, and others just seem to be completely shut down to them. So we're going to talk about that also, which is interesting. It's really interesting, or at least one of the reasons why this happens to people. And some of the things that will keep us stuck and keep us from the experiences that we want. Because I get a lot of emails about people who really want to have an experience and don't have an experience, or they have somebody pass away and this, long lost cousin or something like that has an encounter with a loved one, and they don't, and they were the closer to the person, and they don't understand what happened. I don't understand what went on here. I thought this person liked me and now they don't like me anymore. So we're gonna get into that too, as to exactly what creates that, what happens. So as a lot of really great questions, and I think part of what ties into that is why skeptics have a hard time having experiences as well. So that's all going to tie in today. The other thing is, so this February, my new article in Haunted Magazine is going to be out. I posted the cover on the EntitySeeker Facebook page and stuff. It's really cool. They always do an amazing job. It's a super talented guy named Andy Soar who does all the design work for Haunted Magazine. And it's awesome. It's awesome. It's just a great magazine to write for. I love it. And the article that I did this coming month, is about addiction and psychics. And so I hope you guys get a chance to read it. It's really, I think it touches on some of what people are struggling with over the last number of years, and especially the last year with the pandemic and uncertainty and job uncertainty and whatnot. A lot of people are turning to psychics and sending money and spending money. Everything, of course, is going online and by phone. So people are really are struggling with various forms of addiction, but specifically, trying to reach out to find somebody who can actually, tell them what's going to happen, because people don't like uncertainty. People don't like it. They don't like it. We don't like it. we want to be sure, we want to know what's going to happen. And when we don't have that, people start reaching for external things to make themselves feel sure. So the article is all about that. It's all about addictions to psychics and how you get your power back from that. So yeah, I hope you guys dig it. So the question that I wanted to start with today was actually from Dan, and it was really good. And he sent this a while back, but I really wanted to, I wanted to touch on it. And it was the concept of what do you say? What do you tell yourself? What is the internal dialogue that you tell yourself about death? About if somebody's not doing well, how do you move through that? And so I did a video on this a little while ago. It was about a year or two ago now, called the joy in grief. And it was a really interesting conversation actually that my partner and I had together, because we were talking about, it was his idea to do the video, and he said, I think you should discuss the joy in grief. And at first I didn't know what in the hell he was talking about. And then when we got discussing it and we got going back and forth, I realized exactly where he was going with it. And it was the sense that death and losing somebody and losing a person who, is close to you or anything like that, that grief, that surrender that ends up coming from that, because there's nothing that anybody can do about it, right? We're sitting in a place where there's nothing we can do. We can't create in their reality. We can't, do enough things. When somebody's terminally ill, there's nothing that we can physically do to stop that process. And the gift in this is the fact that we now have the opportunity, as crappy as the circumstances are, to learn to find our own alignment without the assistance of something that we can do to control the external. And so there's a pivot point. And the one thing that I deal with, because I work with fire so much, is something called a flashpoint, right? And a flashpoint is the point at which a fuel is ignited. It's the point at which all the materials, everything comes together, and bam, you've got fire. The fuel that I use for fire eating, for example, is different than the fuel that I use for fire breathing. Very, very crucial difference, because the flashpoint in fire breathing or fire eating, for example, has to be so that it is actually explosive. The fuel that I use for fire breathing is not explosive, it's oil-based. The fuel that I use for fire eating is explosive. And the reason why that's important is because I need to be able to put that fire out instantly. As soon as that flame goes into my mouth, I have to be able to extinguish it. So manifestations hit this as well. We hit a flashpoint with our manifestations, and we hit a flashpoint with surrender. We hit a flashpoint with certain experiences in our life. And I'm going to do a fire video to explain this at some point here in the near future. But we hit a flashpoint about this. And when it comes to things like grief, we have to realize that this is our opportunity to surrender and then be able to decide and make a decision how we want this relationship with this person who is about to become non-physical to be once they become non-physical, because that person is not going to cease to be. They won't. And so we've got to make a decision. What kind of relationship are we going to want with them? A lot of people have a lot of trouble with this because they automatically think that the person that is passing away is going to be the ego-driven person once they move into non-physical. And the research has not found that. The research has found that the ego very much disappears, the negative ego very much disappears, and you end up with a person who is now non-physical, pure positive energy. You don't get that same negativity that carries over. So, which disappoints some people, because some people think that, we're going to be, they're going to pay for it once they die. That's not what the research says. Sorry. But we have to decide to how are we going to look at this moving forward? Are we going to lose that relationship, or are we going to build the new one that is now going to exist if we choose to have it with this new non-physical energy? So That's definitely one thing that to think about when it comes to people passing away. The other thing that I think a lot of people get hung up on is they get hung up on their own upset, and they start to beat themselves up for feeling grief. They start to beat themselves up for it. They think, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I'm a deliberate creator. I should be, positive and all of these things. And that's just not who we are. That's just not who we are. We are physically oriented beings. And when we're physically oriented, when we lose something that is physical, we grieve that process that is physical, because we translate everything on a physical level. So we can't be beating ourselves up for that. And the more that we try to stuff it, the more we disconnect ourselves from who this person has now become as pure positive energy. So, which kind of brings me into the next bit of question here, because I thought I wanted to touch on this. Because the question that came in was, why do skeptics have a hard time having paranormal experiences? What is going on? And it directly ties into what we're talking about here with grief, because oftentimes when we're in grief, specifically when we're in anger, when we're trying to reason out a situation that doesn't seem to have any reason to it, we end up really stuck in our heads, People, especially intellectual people, have a really difficult time separating what's going on here with what's going on here. They have a really, really hard time with that. And you'll notice it the most when you ask somebody who is very, very intellectual, how did this thing make you feel? And they'll come back with a response that's basically, well, let me tell you how it made me feel. It made me feel, I guess I was upset, and I guess I was angry, and I was, I got happy about it for a little bit. But there's no connection. There's no emotional connection compared to when you ask somebody who is a little bit more used to speaking from here, where they will make that connection with you, and they'll tell you, what? This was heartbreaking to me. I had a long journey ahead of me to get to where I needed to go. And, man, I was really angry, and I had really had to deal with that. And there's a disconnect. There's a replacement of emotion, connection, all sorts of different things that are going on when you're talking to somebody who is connected here versus just connected here, and they've lost that in between. So the paranormal and the spiritual, all the stuff that we talk about, hauntings, everything, challenge those people. They challenge them, because oftentimes the paranormal does not speak the intellectual language that we want it to. It just doesn't, because it defies what we understand as laws of physics. It defies a lot of intellectual, what we know, or what we think we know, what we think our understanding is of the physical world. And it really does speak another language. And when you want to connect with spirits, whether you want to connect with yourself a little bit more, if you want to connect with whatever it is, whatever spiritual experience you're having, it doesn't come from the head. It's not an intellectual process. It's a heart process. So sometimes, we have a hard time, or skeptics have a hard time, because this part just has not opened up. It just hasn't. They're trying to reason it out. They're speaking the wrong language. It's like if you guys had picked up, say, for example, the Mandarin language, right? You pick up a piece of paper and you're trying to use English to decipher all of the characters in Mandarin. And you're looking at this going, well, this is stupid. This is broken, because this doesn't work. This doesn't work. I can't translate this at all. This doesn't make any sense. And that's kind of what happens when you've got somebody who is just completely roadblocked emotionally with experiences like this. And we see this translated in experiments that have been done in universities all over the place, like the Gansfeld experiment, where you've got a person who is being the receiver and someone who is in another room being the sender of an image or words or information, and the person in the other room has got to meditate and surrender and receive that block of thought or that information. And they found consistently over and over and over again that you have people who are just simply just blocked up. The people who, are saying, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand this. I think this is kind of crazy. I don't really buy this, so on and so forth. They're the ones who do worse on a lot of these tests. They just don't do well. So we've got to look at that when we're having these experiences. The people who do better are those who are open-minded. They might not necessarily understand what's going on, but they're having fun with it. They're excited about it. So we have to start to ask ourselves, has your heart opened up? And it doesn't just relate to the paranormal experiences. Some experiences just won't come to you until you do that. So it's worth taking a look, taking that information and looking in your life, whether it be a relationship or whether it be an experience, just an experience that you want to have. And if your heart's not open to that, it's not going to come to you. There are just some experiences that require that of you. They just requires that in order to get into that emotional state. And this is where I think a lot of people can end up getting sort of thrown off the path a little bit as well, where intention really is everything when it comes to some of this stuff. And when we're dealing with things like manifestation, when we're dealing with this tipping point, we have to be aware of what's going on around us in terms of the people, the systems that it's going to affect, the individuals that are going to be around us. I'll use the example of, somebody who's passing away, for instance. You'll get people who have an investment, and you'll see this with people who are ill. They have an investment in either them being broken or you being broken with them. So here's the kicker with this. They'll hang on to you because they know what to say. They know the language. They know how to say the right things. And unless we are particular about who we are sharing these experiences with, we really have to be aware that sometimes that dysfunction, that illness, that whatever that is going on, is actually serving the system that's sitting around them. I've seen this oftentimes with people who are, for example, terminally ill, where the people around them have deemed that their job in life. And then that person passes away, and those people who have set up a system in order to find their self-worth within helping or consistently helping this person, and has defined the relationship that way, that they will end up losing themselves once that person makes their transition to non-physical, because their brokenness, as upsetting as the illness was serving a purpose within that system. So when we hit a flashpoint in manifestation, when we hit that tipping point and stuff starts to happen, some people will turn around and say, I don't understand what happened to you. How can you not be broken and struggling and suffering when, all of this has happened and all of this system has collapsed, or these people have passed away, or whatever. And the one thing I would encourage everybody to start thinking about is, as we process through our own grief and our own alignment and getting back to that alignment, we have to remember that the amount that we grieve that person is not a measurement of how much that we loved that person. How much we stay in disconnection is not a measuring stick for how much we loved something or wanted to do something. The more that we hang out in disconnection, the less experiences that we have with the things that we really want. So it's not a measuring stick. And I think that's where so many people really run into trouble. They think, I've grieved 10 years and it's not enough. I should still be upset. I don't want to be happy again. I shouldn't be happy again. This person just passed away. that's super selfish of me. Well, guess what? The only way that you're going to come back into connection with that person is to get yourself back into your own alignment. So really, if you want to maintain that, and you want to continue that relationship, it really is the only way there. So, but as I say, beware of the people and the systems that need you and that benefit from you being dysfunctional enough to maintain that system. I see this all the time with hauntings and negative entities, because what'll happen is you'll get a situation where, and I've had this happen in a couple of cases, where the person's dysfunction, which has manifested or attracted some sort of negative intelligence that's moved into their space, and the person's lack of being able to let go and heal what they've got going on, their want to be in the dysfunction and in the mess, keeps the relationship they have going with the entity. And as much as they hate it, as much as they'll turn around and say, I hate this, I don't want this, I need help, and they're usually the ones that reach out and say, I need help. But when it comes down to giving up that story and turning that over, that's usually oftentimes where it just quits for them. It just quits. And they don't want to move forward with that anymore. So our investment in that person being broken is a very important thing to start to think about and analyze. So how do we get out of that? How do we get out of this and moving forward into that better relationship with whoever that is that's passing away? And Marge is saying she finds comfort in framing old pictures and making ornaments for the Christmas tree with their pictures on them and gives them as gifts. That's a great idea. That is a great idea. I love that. And really, things like that, I think, is so important. People and human beings, they need ritual. We need ritual. That's why we have birthday parties and we have Christmas and we have all these things, because we like to have markers and rituals. That's why in many cultures you see rituals, where a girl becomes a woman for the first time, or a man goes, on a vision quest, or, you've got all of these different rituals that they do, where, they're marking these occasions and moving forward. And so I think that's super cool. So people oftentimes that start doing this work, they find that all hell breaks loose when they start. They'll find all the stuff that was in the bottom and it was sediment in the bottom all starts to come to the surface all of a sudden. All the crap that they didn't know, was going on, or they were ignoring and pushing to the background, they find is all starting to bubble up to the surface. And really what we can do, and that's just contrast. As soon as we start paying attention to what we do want, sometimes what we don't want starts coming up because we start activating that other end of the stick. If we're putting too much of our attention on what we don't want, we get that instead of what we do want. And then people think it doesn't work, but it does. So when it comes down to this, we kind of have to think about this like a river. And because people think, well, if I'm down in grief, how do I get my boat up that stream? And the thing is that the rivers, if we look at anything with a current, it's going to do what it's going to do. It's flowing. You can't make it stop flowing. Like you can't be upset enough to make that current stop flowing. All you're doing, and I love this analogy from Abraham Hicks, is that you basically are taking your boat out of the stream. You get disconnected and you start trying to paddle upstream, and you take your boat and you put it on the shore. It doesn't stop the river from flowing. That well-being, that abundance, that source energy, it's still going. It's still going. You've just taken your boat out of the stream. And so you have to be able to turn around and say, okay, well, wait a minute, like this isn't working. So really, there is no wrong place to put your boat in the stream. There just isn't. You pick up your boat, you put it in there. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in grief, depression, upset, sadness, whatever that is. You end up putting your boat in the stream wherever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you've been. It just matters where you're going. And slowly, incrementally, as you're working through this grief, you will find yourself moving downstream. You have to. You at the end of the day, you have to. The current won't go in another direction unless you are turning around and paddling up the river. And that usually takes a lot of effort. It usually takes a lot of resistance, a lot of effort. You got to work really hard to do it. And it sucks. It feels like crap. It's not good. So the best thing that we can do, and that's where really surrender comes in, is to be able to turn your boat downstream and just let it go. And there's going to be days where sometimes you end up back upstream. You end up paddling backwards because your brain takes over and it's, the grief takes over and whatever. But eventually you're going to have more of these downstream moments over and over and over and over again, where suddenly you're going downstream more than you're going upstream. And that's really where these experiences with our loved ones and things like that really start to show up. So the people, say for example, I was mentioning at the beginning, that long lost cousin who ends up having this experience with this this loved one who you were like, how did you get the experience? I was supposed to have the experience. I was closer to them than you were. That's where the problem is because that person, that long lost cousin, really has no resistance in the mix, or at least not as much as you might, because you were super close to that person. You are more likely to be in disconnection longer because you miss them. And that cousin who maybe only saw them once in a blue moon is like, I'm sorry for your loss, but like, it doesn't affect my life in the same way. I don't have that same level of grief. So that's really where some of the problem is. So I'll get people that come to me and just go, look, like, I want to talk to this person. I want to have this interaction with them, and I haven't heard from them. I don't get it. What do I do? And so my first part of advice is the first part of the advice is what I just said, is that you're not going downstream quite enough yet. Don't push it. Don't push it. It will happen. It will just happen. But the second part of that is, what part, like I was saying at the beginning, what part are you using to open yourself up to it? Are you in a state of expectation from the heart level? Or are you in a state of, I'm looking at what's missing from the head level? So much of the time when we want something so badly, and this is why the things we want really badly tend to, sometimes don't show up, and the things that we don't really care about will show up, is the fact that when we want something really badly, we are looking at what's missing. And that's part of what grief is our physical just neediness of stuff that is physical. It is, we start looking for the places and the pieces and the physical that we don't have anymore. The void is blatant to us. We might be calling people, or might have been calling that person every day, or we might have been, I don't know, seeing that person frequently, or going for, Christmas or whatever, and that person's not there. So that physical gap is blatant to us because we don't see them there anymore. And when something is missing, whether it be something as severe as a person, or whether it be something even just like money, or an experience that we want that we just wish we had, that continuing, as much as we might want it, continuing to notice that it's missing holds us apart from the experience that we really want. Statistically, in the paranormal world, the people who end up having these interesting experiences with their loved ones who have passed away, and this is kind of cool, are usually people who are doing something very mundane. They are watching TV, or they doing the dishes, or just about to go to bed, or just doing routine stuff. And that's because when we're doing routine stuff, we kind of let our mind wander. We're not focused on anything, positive, negative. Oftentimes we're just kind of spaced right out. How many encounters and paranormal encounters have you read where, you're hearing somebody say, well, I was just vacuuming and this just showed up and I couldn't believe it. Or, people, for those of you who watch haunted hospitals, you probably hear quite a number of stories of janitors and caretakers that are saying, I was just doing my nightly routine and I was just walking along and stuff started happening and I don't know where it came from. Well, it's because we start letting go. We start letting go of resistance. And when we do, this stuff starts to show up and pour into our experience. It's really interesting. So I have a new book for us today. I wanted to read a bit about that from The Astonishing Power of Emotions. This is an awesome book, you guys. If you're interested in anything about channeling or anything like that, and well-being talk and whatever, this is an amazing book. It's called The Astonishing Power of Emotions, and it's by Jerry and Esther Hicks. Really, really awesome book. And they've just got a really fantastic little bit about this in here that I wanted to read to you guys. So check this out. Imagine putting your canoe and oars already inside in a river and floating on the current, and then deliberately turning your canoe upstream and paddling with all your strength against the flow. And as we see you in your boat paddling very hard against the current, we ask, what do you think about turning your canoe downstream and going with the current? But how long can you keep that up, we ask. Turn downstream? Oh, that just seems lazy. But my duty and responsibility, it's to figure all this out. And then, if we were to visit long enough with most people, they would go on to explain, this is just what we do here. It's what my mother did. And her mother before her. Anyone who amounts to anything works diligently against that current. All trophies and monuments are erected to honor those hardworking people who stayed strong against that current. And anyway, people remind us, there are even more rewards after we die for those of you who work hard like this. And we watch you getting more efficient at fighting the current. Your muscles get stronger, your boats become sleeker, you discover more effective oars, and always we listen patiently as we hear a variety of versions on the same general theme of justification for paddling upstream. But then we always explain what we consider to be the most important thing that our physical friends could ever hear from us. Nothing that you want is upstream. And I love that. I love that. It's a great book. Great book, you guys. It's really, really awesome. And it's true. It's just none of the experiences that we want are going against that grain. And I think a lot of the time people will mistake things like grief for going upstream, and it's not. It's not. It's processing through it. We ride through it, and then that it's like if we've got you try to push a cork or a balloon under the water, right? And you push and you push and you push and you push, and what happens? We've all done this as kids, where eventually, as soon as you let go, that balloon and that cork will pop right back up to the surface, and we're like that too. So that's I think that mostly covers the idea of of kind of how this works with paranormal experiences and flashpoints and whatever. But the idea is that we really just have to be patient with ourselves about the things that we want and not harp on them so damn much, because we really do. We start harping on this stuff, and as soon as we start harping on it and we look at the things that aren't in place, as soon as we start to turn our boat and we look at the things that aren't in place, we realize that it's not there, and that in that noticing that it's not there, we hold ourselves apart from what it is. So what do? You find this stuff in your life that's working that already matches what it is. And this is, I have my clients do this all the time, is they'll say, well, I just want a peaceful home again. I just want, joy again. I hate this activity that's going on in my house. And I always ask them, is that happening all day, every single day? Well, no, usually maybe one occurrence a day, maybe, maybe two if it's, What about all the rest of the hours? Where are the rest of your hours that are where nothing's happening? Can you focus there? Can you focus there when there's nothing going on? How many hours are actually going into the day that this stuff is happening? And usually it's very minor. And usually the majority of people's focus is on the couple of seconds of something that occurred, something that happened. They get stuck on it. And when they start to notice that over top of the hours and hours and hours, maybe the 23 hours of the day where nothing's going on, they start to amp up and amplify that one incident, that one little piece of activity, and then it becomes their entire day because their focus is completely turned downstream or upstream onto that whatever just happened. So it really is about playing with focus and not beating up on yourself if something goes skewy, because it will. And as I say, you start messing with this stuff, and all of a sudden hell breaks loose. It's just crazy. You know, and you start to think that, you know, everything's going to shit, and it really isn't. There's just a gap that needs to be closed, and we can close that incrementally, you know, throughout our day. It's what we do. It's just what we do. So anyway, I hope you guys are able to pick up the new copy of Haunted Magazine. It's on their website, haunteddigitalmagazine.com, and I think it's going to be really cool. As I say, it's about breaking addictions to psychics and external crap, paying people to tell us our future and stuff like that, and how to create what you want rather than let it be controlled by somebody else who you're paying money to. And yeah, so I think it's going to be really good, and I'm going to have more fire videos and stuff like that coming out, explaining some more of this stuff and explaining Flashpoint in the next week here, as soon as the weather gets a bit warmer. It is so cold here that even just being in the garage and filming stuff with, you know, fire or whatever, it's like, it's not good. It's not good. It is snowing here right now. It's actually like really snowing. So there it is. That's okay. It gives me more time to sit and edit and learn things. I'm learning all these different things on this new program. My computer decided that it was going to not work for editing anymore. This was like 2 days ago, and I had to go out and get a whole new system and whatever. So, but it definitely made me realize what I wanted versus what I didn't want. So there is that. There's like a silver lining. I'm telling you, silver lining. So anyway, everybody, we got to do some peace affirmations before we go. So everybody take a breath. I'm a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. At this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I am able to embrace love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. And everybody take a breath. Thank you guys for another great Wednesday, as always. As I said, we didn't do last week because the inauguration was on Wednesday, and I know so many people were really glued to their TVs watching all of that go down. It was a pretty big day. So, but we will be back next Wednesday, because as far as I know, we know who the president is now, so we should be good. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Don't forget, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/EntitySeeker. And all the classes are there, as well as on EntitySeeker.ca, the official site. So you guys can check that out and whatnot. There's like a whole bunch of new interviews that I posted as well with the in the video section. There's like a pile of them that I threw up there. So there's those coming out, and there's going to be another one coming out here next month that I just finished, as well as one that that's gonna be coming up here in the next week or so. So lots going on, lots going on. So anyway, I will see you all next week. Stay safe, everybody. Stay in peace and stay in alignment, and I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye, guys.